So, Tuesday 1st of October, Budget Day. What a waste of time that was. What has actually changed? A few increases here and a few one-off payments there, all offset by increases in charges and taxes. Whoop-de-f***ing-do. In the most basic of terms, this government have attempted to buy your vote with your own money. And let's be honest, they haven't even been all that generous, even with a €25 billion surplus this year. As I said, a few one-off payments, double payments, and a tinkering with tax thresholds. That's about it. Well, that's not about it though, is it? No, while giving with one hand, they are taking with the other. Any money that goes back into your pocket will be very quickly taken back out again by the other measures announced in the budget. Oh look, some tinkering with the tax bands and a small increase in welfare payments that will leave people slightly better off. Well, slightly better off until they have to fill up their car since the carbon tax went up, leaving us as one of the most expensive countries in Europe for diesel and petrol. Awesome. The housing measures are really just more of the same, which ultimately means they are simply continuing the failed measures that have only succeeded in increasing the homeless figures each and every month. Wonderful. And don't forget those energy credits, those one-off measures that just keep popping up. Nice, that'll make a small dent in our heating and electric bills. Oh, wait. The hike in the electricity network charges and the hike in the network charge for domestic gas supplies and the hike in the PSO levy will just wipe all that out. Fan-f***ing-tastic. You'd be forgiven for shouting, what's the bloody point? And worse still, as I will keep reminding people every time I get the opportunity, the ESB is 96.9% majority owned by the Irish f***ing government. Just cut the f***ing prices. It's that f***ing simple, just cut the prices. And don't say they can't. They're milking massive profits off the backs of us taxpayer consumers. They can bloody well afford it. And if the ESB cut the prices, then the other operators in Ireland will have to follow suit, or else they'll lose their customer base. But no, our government would rather pretend they are doing something for us, while really handing out what amounts to social welfare for very profitable energy companies. It's psychotic. It's all just a smokescreen, a make-believe fantasy to appear like they are doing something good for us. All just so that for a fleeting moment our bank balance can look a slight bit healthier before it's once again decimated by the cost of simply being alive. In my last video I focused on the bullshit claim from Fine Gael that they want to make Ireland the best country in Europe to be a child. If they honestly think a few double payments in the child benefit will do the trick, then they are sorely mistaken. Nothing but short-term, flash-in-the-pan measures in the hopes that you'll be so glad of an extra few bob that you'll give them your vote, all while the cost of living continues to rise, even if prudent Pascal can't quite understand what inflation means. As a quick explainer, a fall in inflation still means prices are rising. They're just rising at a slower rate. But since we've had high inflation for quite some time now, those prices are rising from a much higher point. So trying to say that the cost of living package should be adjusted to reflect that is just an absolute nonsense. But back to children. What is there in this budget to actually help children long term? Funding for more SNAs and special education teachers. That's about it. And while I'm not going to argue that more funding is needed for those positions, I do have to ask the same question Tommy Bowe put to Minister Norma Foley last year. Where are they coming from? Because funding is all well and good, but you actually need people to fill those roles. Why not release funding and increase the pay for SNAs and special education teachers to incentivize more into those roles and make the role more sustainable, viable and attractive? A quick look at the salary scale for SNAs show that most fall under the median wage, which is just not viable for such an important job. On we go, debunking Fine Gael's claim that they want to make Ireland the best country in Europe to be a child. No extra funding or pay increases for teachers, either to entice more into the profession or to try to fix the staffing crises in schools across the country. No additional funding made available to train, hire and retain the likes of occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, child psychologists or dentists, which I know affects us all, but 5,000 children are waiting for school dental checks. Nope, nothing. Those double child benefit payments are nothing more than a bandage for parents who are desperately seeking out state-funded therapies and interventions and will be eaten up in no time at all. No plan to tackle the scandalous waiting lists and lack of services for children in need across the country, and worse still, no funding released to help children waiting on spinal surgeries to get the care they need. They didn't even get a mention. I guess they figure that the 19 million that went missing is all they need. 99 million euro given to the Horse and Greyhound Fund, yet no money at all to help those children in dire need of surgeries. I'll try to stay calmer this time, but it just beggars all belief. And then the absolute kicker. Remember, no money for scoliosis and spinal surgeries, no money for the various therapists and assessments needed, tokenistic funding for child mental health services, oh, but 9 million euro for phone pouches. I mean, Christ on a fucking bike, what are they smoking in Leinster House? 9 million euro for fucking phone pouches. What can I say about this that hasn't already been said and thought by the whole country, except those on government benches apparently? It's utterly absurd at best and infuriatingly insulting at worst. When this nonsense was challenged in the Dáil by, among others, Sinn Féin's Pearse Doherty, Finance Minister Jack Chambers said that the Sinn Féin opposition to the policy is populist politics driven by anger. Yeah, you're goddamn fucking right it is. Did he honestly think that that was some kind of gotcha comeback? A quick scan of social media will tell you that this absolute waste of taxpayers' money is not a popular move, and yes, there is a shit ton of anger about it. And then we had Minister for Further and Higher Education, Patrick O'Donovan. Yes, that Patrick O'Donovan, who was Junior Minister overseeing the Office of Public Works when the world's most expensive bike shed was signed off on, and who really should just learn to keep his mouth shut, decided to weigh in with this nonsense. For a political party to suggest that a mechanism that is designed and put forward by the minister in good faith to protect child welfare is a waste of money, I think reflects more on them. That was backed up by Jack Chambers when he said, "You should never play politics when it comes to the mental health of young people, of children in schools across our communities." Ludicrously loaded attempts at emotional blackmail, in my opinion. If that is honestly the stance of the government, that if you question this, then you must not care about children's mental health or their welfare, then they are even more deluded than I gave them credit for. 9 million euro for phone pouches and 99 million euro for horses and greyhounds, and they pretend they are serious about children's mental health. Right off with that absolute bullshit. Just take the fucking loss and move on. Pull the funding and invest it somewhere useful, like children's mental health services. It's not that bloody difficult. And before I move on, am I the only one who is looking at this funding to, in effect, confiscate and hold to ransom the smartphones of kids and teenagers as a very jackbooted measure to tackle something that schools have been tackling just fine on their own? Magnetic phone pouches are being spoken about, and all I can think of is, how draconian is this bullshit? You're showing kids from a young age that you don't trust them. And as I've mentioned in my video on the smartphone ban, we can't just pretend kids aren't using them. We should be educating them on safe and responsible use. It's not the state's place to enforce such over-the-top measures, and is a massive overreach in my opinion anyway. But on we go. A 25 billion euro budget surplus, and this is the best they could come up with. Even if you take away the Apple tax, we still have a crazy surplus, and what have we got to show for it, other than the most expensive bike shed and now security office in the world, and the most expensive hospital in the world? Oh, and don't forget the more than doubling in cost of modular homes that are being built, not to address the homeless crisis, but to house the temporary protection applicants from the Ukraine. All fully above board, I'm sure, with no one at all making any kind of profit. No, absolutely not. Nothing to see here, folks. This government have no idea of the value of money. They hoard and hoard and hoard, and when they do spend, they spend wastefully, time and time and time again. They're lowering taxes. Great, who wants to pay taxes? But how will they do more with less? They won't. This is the best they could offer when they have the money to really change Ireland for the better, because, well, they must like Ireland the way it is. I'd wager most people would be okay with paying the current levels of taxation if we actually had, well, anything to show for it. If we could see where our money was being spent, or if simply living wasn't so bloody expensive. This government have at their disposal the funds needed for not only the one-off payments, but the funds to fundamentally challenge the root causes of so many issues facing our country today. No services, failing infrastructure, an ever-worsening housing and homeless disaster, a failing, bloated, top-heavy health system, a failing education system, a welfare system that ignores carers and those with disabilities, a cost of living crisis that is still spiralling out of control. And this budget does absolutely nothing, not a damn thing, to address the root cause of any of it. All it does is tinker at the edges or put a bandage on the gaping wound instead of actually treating it. We have all the money in the world and nothing to show for it. It's criminal waste, in my opinion. An absolute nothing burger of a budget at best, and an insulting FU to the electorate at worst. And yet, they hope to buy your vote. Please don't let them. Don't let your vote be bought so cheaply. It's worth far more than what this government have offered to you in this budget. So what do you think? Are you happy with offerings from government in this budget? Are you better off? Have they done enough to convince you that they actually do want what's best for the ordinary people of this country? Or is this simply yet another insulting offering that shows how little this government think of the people of this country that we could be so easily bought? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.